trying to fix it. I thought I had it. Shoot. Give me a minute. Hold on. I'm gonna... There we go. Okay. Need to make sure that my thing is not going to fall over. And that I am in frame properly. Okay. Think I'm good enough? Ish. Okay. Hi. I feel like my phone might end up falling over. I'm just gonna try to like, lower it a little bit. I think here. Okay, here's a little bit better. Hello. I am, well, happy that you are tuning in. If you are just tuning in, or if you're going to be watching this later, hi, my name is Elena, and I'm enchanted for you to be here. And we are doing our book club meeting thing today. I had the window open, and I think I should close that. One moment. So it's not as noisy. Okay, I think that should be better. Yes, yeah, I think there's gonna be less background noise. So, hello, my name is Elena, and I'm enchanted for you to be here and join us on our book club, our book coven, if you want to be spooky about it. I've talked about this before, about like what book we're reading and whatever, and kind of like the overall plan about this book club book meeting beforehand on the previous video about this, and I'm going to try to link it, see if I can make it pop up here, because editing live videos afterwards is different than like regular videos. Either it's going to be linked up top here with a pop-up somewhere, or in the description, or in the comments. It'll be somewhere. If anything, you can always check out my website, which will have more information. So, what are we doing today? We are talking about this book. I know a couple people just recently purchased this book to come and join us, so they might not have caught up to where we are. If you did or didn't, it's totally okay. If you already read the pages that we were going to be reading, I will be happy to have you join in the conversation. And if not, you can just, always hang out and listen to the ideas and all that stuff. So the book we're going through is Elemental Witchcraft by Heron Michelle. And this is our, officially first book talk about this book today, because the previous video was more of like an introduction of things that we're doing, and yeah, that kind of thing. So today we're going through the first 26 pages of this book, and I split it up to around 26 pages per week, because we have a goal of finishing it right around Samhain for the ritual, and then like the wheel turning of the year that this book starts off with. Also, if you did read this book, you might realize that it is a little bit dense, and it's not just like a reading book, it's more of a textbook, a very witchy textbook. Hello from Idaho, and hello from Vancouver, and I'm glad you guys are tuning in. I am a little bit tired and out of breath today. I have not been feeling great. If there's gonna be questions about this little device thingy, it's a heart monitor. I have problems, and my doctor stuck this on me, so you'll have to bear with it. But overall, I'm okay. I just might be a little bit out of breath and more tired than usual today, because I came from class, and well, yeah. Anyways, that's enough about this. Let's talk about the books. Those of you who are tuning in, if you have read the first 26 pages, if you want to look up a favorite quote that you found in it, or came across in that book or that kind of thing, and like type it out down below. I want to read you my favorite quote from it, because when I read it, I was just like, oh, this is good. Let me find it. I posted it to my Instagram not too long ago, but literally I read it and I was just like, this is just the great thing. So basically she was talking about doing research and kind of taking everything with a grain of salt. So just because somebody says something that's the way that they do it, it's not the only way that is the right way to do it, possibly, especially when it comes to being a practitioner and practicing witchcraft or magic or any sort of spirituality, that type of thing. And she prompts people to do like their own research stuff. So the quote is, and that's on page 11, and it goes, "Ignorance is an option no one has to take." And I just love it, because the thing she mentions is having access to like the internet on your phone and that kind of thing, and you know, all of that fun stuff. And it was just like so great. It came across, and it's just like, literally, ignorance is an option no one should take, because there's so much information available right at the touch of our fingers. Yeah, so if you have a favorite quote, write it down either in like the chat now if you're here, or if you're rewatching this later. I would love to see what your favorite quote is. Okay, now that is the start off. I think maybe every live chat we can do a little thing like that, where you share your favorite quote and I will share mine. So how I read my books is I put a whole bunch of different tabs of things that I want to kind of talk about, things that I want to mention. And lately, I started making notes in the book directly with pencil. And that took me a very long time to like, I used to absolutely hate that. And if I saw any textbooks or whatever, people actually writing in the book itself, it bothered me a lot, until it became very, very convenient when I do these lives and talk about it. So I started writing the little notes. And I don't know, I guess I'll just talk through what little tidbits and things that I found interesting, what I really liked, what I kind of disliked throughout it. And as people kind of like pop on and talk about it and like put in their perspective, their information, will kind of go from there and see how it goes. So is it Jillian or Gillian? I think it might be Jillian, says, "I really like when she says, so you have to forge your own path through firsthand experience." Yes, I like that one too. I think I might have it actually underlined. Because she's talking about how witchcraft is more of a hands-on experience and that kind of thing. So that is also a very, very good quote. Reading it initially, the author has a very direct form of communication, I would say. I don't want to say it's, okay, how do I put it without really giving it a negative description, because it is not a negative thing. It's very like direct and straight to the point, and kind of like not sugarcoating anything. And she just seems like a very strong personality. And I love that. It is a very direct book. And it definitely comes out in some of the things, especially when she talks about the patriarchal religions. You can really see her tone of voice, how she is very strongly opinionated, and rightfully so. You're entitled to your own opinion and that kind of thing. But overall, throughout the entire book, she has very like direct and fierce and very like teaching language. I hope that makes sense. And it's not in a negative way. It's just very textbook-like kind of speech. I hope I'm making sense with that. Let me know if that's kind of the impression you're getting from it when you're reading it or not, or if you can kind of like see it in a different way, but that's what I'm getting it from her. So yeah. Her first introduction, she kind of talks about how she went through like into her path, and at the beginning she talks about how she was in a Christian religion to begin with and grew up in a very Christian religion. And I've noticed kind of a pattern with a lot of practitioners, especially those who have been practicing for a pretty long time. A lot of the time their background starts in Christianity. Same with me. My background also started with Christianity, and what kind of ended up getting them to explore other religions to find out more is they kept asking questions that they couldn't get answers to. And I think that that is like really, really interesting, because the more strict of a Christian experience a current like spiritual practitioner has, the more open-minded they've become and the more invested in like nature, that kind of thing they get. That's kind of my experience from talking with other practitioners and other things, and from my own personal background and experience itself. So I think that is pretty interesting. Let's see. She also talks about her childhood and how she had more of like a spiritual connectedness, such as clairvoyance, and getting like dreams coming true and that kind of thing. If you're currently a practitioner, I wonder if you've had any experiences with that, because I did when I was a kid. And it was always interesting because I would tell my mom I would see like an angel or a spirit, and she would be like, oh, an angel, yay, you know, that kind of thing. But then when I would tell her that, oh, I don't really like going over my aunt's house because I feel like there's bad energy, and she's like, oh, you're making things up. Your aunt is fine. So that's my experience. I want to hear yours. And she talks about hers when she was a little kid and like hindsight and that kind of thing. Let's see. So I'm only like really on page 2 right now, going through all of my little notes here. So she also says that the most important night of her life came when she was around 13 years old. It was a particularly bright full moon night, and she talks about how she like got into the whole spiritual path around that time, which is really cool for me. I was around 12 years old when I had that like strong calling to it. And she also talks about how she started off with Wicca and the goddess religion of Wicca. I've also noticed that a lot of practitioners, their first kind of starting point is Wicca. And if you're just kind of like starting out, Wicca is more of a religion. It's a spiritual practice religion. And the reason I think that most people start off with Wicca is because it is the most readily available resource, or kind of like the how do I put it? The name that is most talked about when it comes to witchcraft. Now, being a witch and being a Wiccan is not like, you don't need to be Wiccan to be a witch. And you don't have to be a witch if you are Wiccan. You can be a witch without being Wiccan. You can practice other religions, and you can be neither, you can be both, and that kind of thing. This book overall is really Wiccan based, which is okay. That's like her experience and that kind of thing. And I think it's very interesting because she talks a lot about like the Wiccan history and the previous Wiccan texts. I myself am not Wiccan. I am an eclectic practitioner. I don't really consider myself in anything in particular. So as I've mentioned in previous videos, when we're reading these things, if something resonates with you, great. If you like something that she says, great. If you disagree something she says, that's also great. just take what resonates and leave the rest. That kind of thing. Let's see. Gonna go through my little notes here. Another thing she said in regards to starting her practice is that I just kept showing up at the crossroads of magic to do lots of hard work, ask questions, and figure it out on my own, like an occult explorer. Which definitely goes alongside with the quote of what Jillian says, that you have to forge your own path through firsthand experience, which is really, really important. Reading texts and learning things from somebody else and watching videos is all great to get like a good basis in the startup of your spiritual journey. But in order to really understand it, you gotta put in the work, you gotta do the things, you gotta do the practice, you gotta stick your hand in dirt outside of nature so you can feel those energies and that kind of stuff. Yep. So let's see. If you are tuning in after this live goes live, and like, you're welcome to put in any of like the answers or whatever into the comments down below, or you can do it a lot on the website as well, on my website as well, in the comments, and I will go through it and respond to it. And if there's something that I want to talk about more of it, or elaborate on it, or like ask questions, I will kind of pull it through into the next week's video, if that makes sense. So I promise you, you will not be forgotten. If you're not here live and chatting and you want to leave like messages afterwards, I will be checking on them. Okay, let's see. So on to the next thing. She talks about modern witchcraft, and I like her quote, how she mentions that modern witchcraft is also a spirituality which blends scientific knowledge and ancient mysticism with the goal of evolving beyond the pitfalls of other religions. I kind of like that. I like the way that she talks about it. And then later on, what was the page for it? Page... Where is that diagram? It was on page 19 that she puts a really good diagram, like visual representation of the combination of what magic is, or what she calls it, the isness is, and I really like that. So that thing on page 4 ties into the stuff happening later. What else? She also talks about witchcraft, and then she calls it like the pentacle path, which is what she considers her book, her practice, more of a pentacle path. And she says that, mind you, this pentacle path isn't always a tango through the moonflowers. Sometimes we're dragged screaming by the scruff through some wickedly thorny brambles. The path a witch treads jigs and jags through both sunlight and shadow, ecstasy and agony, beauty and horror, gain and loss. Which is very, very much true when it comes to being a practitioner, or really following any religion, or trying something new in general. So it's not always going to be, daisies and roses when you are starting off your practice, but it is going to be very rewarding, I would say, once you get into it, once you find what resonates with you, when you start connecting with your own magic, with the magic around you, with the energies and that kind of thing. There's going to be a moment where it's like, if you are just starting, you're going to feel like you're getting nowhere. For me, it was quite a long time until something like clicks. And I don't know how to explain it anymore. It's just like a light bulb goes off, and then you start like, oh, okay, now I get it. Like a door gets opened. but you first need to keep trying to get to that door. And it's learning new things and trying new things is hard in general. But when it comes to spirituality and practicing with the energies and entities and that kind of thing, it can be a little bit challenging. Depending on what it is, some things happen easier for others than others. So everybody has their own like little niches, their own little talents where they would find things not as difficult. For example, I struggle with meditating and really becoming still. That's probably because I have ADHD and the whole brain thing that happens. But there are other people that are able to get into the meditative zone, into the like the full clear zone a lot easier than others. There are times when people can easily connect with, let's say, crystals, and while others easily can connect with more nature and herbs and that kind of thing. So find what calls to you and what you are like interested in, and kind of go towards that little tug, that kind of thing. All right, moving on. And if you have been a practitioner for a longer time, let me know if that has been your experience or if you found something easier to get into. I'm not really entirely sure with that one. I think I might have rambled off a little bit off topic, but oh well. Okay, let's see. Yep, going back to the learning things right now and when you should start or how you should start. It says that the best way to start off is to bundle up your gumption and strike out from wherever you are right now. There's no perfect time to start. There's no perfect space to start. There's no perfect day, month, hour, I don't know, age, or that kind of thing to start. The best time to start is when you're feeling called towards starting, which is, if you are watching this video here right now, is probably right now. Let's see. The first and most enduring lesson of witchcraft begins by becoming fully present exactly where we live, on planet Earth, in these gorgeous magical bodies during these bizarre times. And I find that kind of interesting because this book was published in 2011. Yes? No? Wait, hold on. Publication first, 2021. Yes. Oh, for some reason I thought it was... Hold on. The first edition was published... Okay, first edition was published in 2021. I misread that. I thought it was 2011, and I was just like, oh, bizarre times in 2011. She doesn't know what times are here now, but okay. 2021, she gets the times. Anyways, there's bizarre times all the time happening. So that was my mistake. I misread the number. Okay. Later on, she talks about what to expect in the book. We're still at like the introduction stage. I'm on page 7. That kind of thing. And she brings up more of Wicca and modern witchcraft and that kind of stuff. So as I've mentioned a little bit earlier, I am not Wiccan myself. I started off studying Wicca, but I've begun more on an eclectic path because I've studied other religions and there's things that resonate with me more than others, that kind of thing. So she has a system of modern witchcraft, and it's distinct for several reasons. And she lists off the reasons. So she says that it's built upon a panentheistic paradigm, and that the great goddess and great god are engaged as the two who moves as one. And it's based on the ancient Hermetic philosophies, and that it takes inspiration from Wiccan mythos of moon goddess and horn god. So that's what she talks about this book, where it's really strongly taken inspiration from the Wiccan religion, if that makes sense. And she also, sorry, the list continues on the next page. That she engages, that, let me start this again. That modern witchcraft engages in the alchemical great work of magic, intent on evolving human consciousness, but doing so each witch at a time, that it follows the pentacle paths of serenity, truth, power, love, and completion, that it utilizes the praxis of ritual magic, journey work, and spellcraft, that explores the elemental mysteries, introduces the 9 divine love conditions, offers the 4 rules for personal sovereignty as an ethical framework for reconciling the paradox of sovereignty within an interconnected web of existence, and then it instilled tools of equality and cooperation within the honeymoon paradigm of goddess loving God, that kind of thing. So it is strongly Wiccan based, just letting you know. And another point she says, like, when to start. She goes, whenever you pick up this book is an excellent time to dive in. Which I have also mentioned before, that kind of thing. And we're starting it now because I'm kind of timing it for reaching the section 3 right before Samhain. Where's the thing? So I'm jumping ahead towards section 3 because it talks about the where does it go? Where did it go? Come on. I think it's the exercise 5, right? Hold on, I'm sorry. Great work, Wheel of the Year. There was a specific exercise that she encourages you to do at a specific time for the moon stuff. Okay. I think it's the exercise 5, Earth Formulary Crafting. And it says during the waxing lunar cycle, and when the moon is in the Earth sign of Taurus, Virgo, Capricorn, and this happens right around Samhain, if not on Samhain. I think it happens the Saturday, the Friday or the Saturday, or whatever, which is why I'm starting this book now, to give us enough time to get to that point right before this time. In like moon cycle wise, how she wants you to go through like the wheel of the year, it ends up matching up fairly well. I swear I put like a sticky note for it of how it's happening. Yeah, I'm gonna double check everything for sure and make sure I put that down on my website and that kind of thing. Okay, so then she goes about splitting up the different sections of this book. So section 1 is Foundations of Modern Witchcraft, which are going to be pages 15 through 95. Then section 2 is Elemental Magic Basis, and she talks about the lore and history of the elemental magic and mysteries, that kind of thing, and the Witch's Jewel of Power, which are going to be pages 103 through 220. And then section 3 starts with the turning of the wheel through elemental witchcraft, and that's when we really get into the whole thing of going by the seasons, by the moon cycle, that kind of thing. It's not going to be as much to read. I think it'll be less than 26 pages for the week, that kind of thing, but I will do my absolute best to stay on top of like the astrological correspondences she wants to go alongside with this thing for the exercises she wants to do. Now, when it comes to the time for these exercises and that kind of thing, and she also mentions it, that you can change things up and do things more of like what fit you per se. I know that there are some things that will happen throughout the exercises that might not be aligning with me in particular, so I will either change it up a little bit or still give it a try based on how she says. But what's really important for me when it comes to trying other practitioners, other witches, rituals or spell, is that every single bit of it, every single thing that happens in that ritual or the spell resonates with me directly. If there's something that I'm looking at that ritual or that practice and I'm feeling like, well, I don't really feel super comfortable doing that, then I'm not going to do it. So all of that is based on you and your comfort level. You have to make sure that you are completely okay and trusting of the whole thing, because opening up yourself spiritually to a spell or to a ritual, to a practice, could be quite dangerous if you are not feeling safe and not feeling comfortable. So everything in this book, take with a grain of salt. And give it a try if you feel safe and comfortable to do so. Again, after all of these chats, I'm going to be doing like a condensed version blog post thing on my website, which will be up within the 24 hours, that kind of thing. Yeah. So that's how I'm going to be taking the section 3. I really want to try as much as I feel comfortable with, but if it's something that I'm a little hesitant on, I won't really push myself or my spiritual comfort with it. Now, it is very, very rarely that I would use a spell from any spell book or ritual from any ritual book word for word. I always kind of change it up and do something that like resonates better with me. I just feel safer that way. If you know what I mean, or if you understand it, and if you want me to elaborate on that more, let me know. If you're the same, let me know, or if you're different, also let me know. I want to talk about these things because I don't always have conversations with practitioners, and I want to. Therefore, this book club. Okay, let's see. So she also talks about building your own temple. It says, life has great meaning, but it is up to you to discover it, assign it value, and then celebrate that meaning. Do as you will, but do it as beneficially and meaningfully as you can muster. I really like that quote as well. I think that's kind of a good way to like base things off of. And also, she also brings up the discernment is key. She goes, as you study, I challenge you to accept no blind faith or superstition. Just do as I say. Malarkey into your witchcraft, starting with this book, though I suggest you try each technique presented here at least once. Feel free to customize them to your personal practice once you figure out what works for you and what doesn't. Now, this is on page 10 for her introduction thing. And I also think that's very important and very good that she put that in the book, because it shows me that she's not, standing upright, pounding on her chest, like, this is the only way you should do it, and that's it. This is the right way to do it. Which is false. Being a practitioner and practicing things, there's really no right way to do it as long as you get the results intended. That kind of thing. So I'm very happy that she put that in the book. Let's see. And she also says that just because a bit of lore or someone's pet theory was printed in occult books that everyone referenced for decades, that doesn't necessarily make it factual. I also like that she points that out. Again, she says, I beseech you to critically examine everything you've ever heard about witchcraft. Do your own research, search your intuition, try things out with a healthy dose of scientific skepticism, and then draw your own conclusions. This is right before my favorite quote of the ignorance is an option no one should take. That kind of thing. And she also says that just because some witchcraft meme is trending on social media does not necessarily make it accurate either. Discernment is key. I really like it that she has like a full section on this, talking about how you should, use your common sense, use your intuition, use your knowledge of this and research everything. And don't take someone's word for it completely. Take everything with a healthy dose of skepticism, scientific skepticism. So that was like the introduction part. Then we are starting the section 1 on page 14, that kind of thing. And it's religious foundations of modern witchcraft, which is how she gets into the slight history of it and more of like a background of Wicca and that kind of practice. So a thing that she says right at the start of chapter 1 is that nature teaches us that all life is a cycle without beginning or end, such that each present moment hangs in the balance between cause and effect. And I really like that. Okay. I also made more notes that it's heavily based off of Wicca. And she talks about neo-paganism, which is the starting movement for Wicca and bringing up witchcraft and that kind of thing. She provides a lot of reference books kind of stuff to read, which I kind of want to make a list separately and probably read some of those books that are based off of like the origination of neo-paganism. That kind of thing. What else? Okay, so now we're on page 19 onto the little chart thing. And this has the Venn diagram. And I've also mentioned this in my previous videos and the previous times that I've talked about spirituality and paganism, how magic is a science that we haven't really had a chance to explain yet. There is a lot of science that used to be believed to be magic is now, for fact and considered science. But before that research was done, before things were discovered in such a way, it was considered magic. So I think it's only a matter of time that a lot of the things that we consider magic and spirituality will be very concretely scientifically proved to be, you know, a fact of nature and the world and the way that things are. The isness, as she describes it. So I am going to show you this page here. This is the Venn diagram that she has with things connected and how the outside is nature, pretty much like the world itself and that kind of thing, the everything, the all, and how she brings in the different, there goes my bookmark, the different bits and pieces and how all of it is interconnected with the isness. I just love this diagram that she put together. It's a very visual representation of just what magic is, what the isness is, what that energy is, what that thing is that everybody kind of feels, but there's no full name for it. So we just go and give it a basic name of magic or energy or the isness, the thing. Yeah, I really like that Venn diagram. Then she goes about defining paganism and how it used to be meant somebody who is a country dweller or of the land, and it talks about pretty much any religion that is not converting to an Abrahamic based religion is a pagan based religion. So there's that. And let's see. I also like how she mentions a previous study that she's done on early goddess-centered cultures, that they were artistic, relatively joyful, peaceful, and remarkably equalitarian for thousands of years. That kind of thing. Because, well, she she has very strong opinions about orthodoxies. Let's see. And then she goes about boiling each of the natural religions down to their essence, and she talks about the commonalities that she found. She has like a little list, for example, sacredness of all nature, celebration of repeating cycles of nature linked with continuation of life, death, and rebirth, techniques for reunion with spirit, interconnection of consciousness with all things, venerations of hosts of spiritual entities within multiple dimensions, and then hidden magic just beneath the obvious, which may be tapped to effect change. I want to know what you think of that list and the commonalities that she has put together in regards to pagan-based religions. I think she's pretty on point with that. Then she gets into very strong language about shutting the invasive orthodoxies. And that kind of thing, which kind of made me smile. Again, as I mentioned earlier, the more spiritual a person, let me rephrase that, very spiritual, I need to find the right words. Quite a few people that I have met who are very spiritual and very open-minded have had pretty extensive history of being very oppressed or strongly influenced with the orthodox types of the Abrahamic religions and that kind of thing. So I think that's very interesting. Let's see. And she has she has a full couple paragraphs talking about the orthodoxies and that kind of thing. And how she says that these coercive tenets are a form of spiritual violence and not in harmonious accord with nature, and that evil with neo-paganism would say flows through fear-based choices and emerges from the subversions of the natural order. She has very like strong opinions towards it, which is absolutely fine. But I think from my experience, it's not exactly the ancient texts of these Abrahamic religions that create such a invasive orthodoxy, as she calls it. I think it's more of the practitioners in that religion currently, because there is so much that the older Bibles have talked about that have been very much changed and rewarded, that will have different meanings compared to what the original meaning was of the initial religion. Now, I am not for or against any of those Abrahamic religions. I am very much for your own choice of spirituality, and I am very much against being forced to do something that does not feel right with me. Those are kind of my takes on it, and I believe a lot of what from the previous Abrahamic religions, of what happened, what kind of turned it into a violence-based, how she says it, or fear-based choices, is on the decisions of those in like higher up leadership for these religions. It is the religion itself and not the text or the practices from the older texts, if that makes sense. Yeah. I think it was earlier on my Instagram that I have shared some bits and pieces of what I've read from the Geneva Bible. I have a facsimile copy of the Geneva Bible from 1560. And the reason I'm looking over there is because it's right there on the top of my bookshelf. And I compared it to like the modern texts of the current Bible that was dispersed to me in my church when I was a teenager. And there's the specific phrase and specific things that were like definitely changed out and are interpreted way differently in the current more modern text compared to the text that was in 1560. Yeah. Let's see. Then she talks about the elemental tools to transform our culture, and she talks about the dominator model versus the partnership or cooperator model. And again, she has very strong language towards specific type of religion based, that kind of thing. Let's see what else. And then she talks about like the patriarchal or matriarchal, and how the root word of patriarchal meaning father, matriarchal meaning mother. These distinctions still aren't about the sex or gender of the people in charge. Men are just as much victims of any toxic dominator system, which I like how she points that out after she kind of goes in a little like rant, I would say, about her beliefs in the orthodoxies and that kind of thing. But I do like how she points it out that it's just the issue is with the orthodoxies, not with the majority of the people, if that makes sense. Okay. I'd like to hear your thoughts on it when you came across like that part, and to see what you thought about it and that kind of thing. Let's see. Okay, so last part of her little rant on the orthodoxies, it says the tools of the patriarchy are fear, oppression, and domination. And this is in regards to which is saying like smash the patriarchy and how that doesn't exactly work out. Because if we smash things and we've only staged a coup with a change of bully regime and improved nothing, it's just a perpetuation of violence and a transference of privilege. So she talks about how modern witchcraft offers a new paradigm and a new approach, which I like, and I agree with it. There's a lot of strong speech against the patriarchy in regards to a similar way to fight the patriarchy with the patriarchy in a matriarchal way, which never made sense to me. And I have like an old note from when I started reading this book way before, which never really made sense to me, because if you're trying to fight fire with fire, then just everything's going to end up being burnt down and there's not going to be much salvaged from it. So there needs to be a different approach. And I like how she encourages, let me find the right word, 1 second. And she believes that modern witchcraft will offer a new paradigm. Wow, I'm forgetting some words. It's really funny because I'm learning German. So I'm taking German language classes, and I started off with Russian. Russian is my my mother tongue, my base language. I grew up in a Russian household, that kind of thing. Then I learned English, and I speak English more than I do Russian. And now I'm adding, and then I started learning Spanish for school and for work. So I was speaking a little bit of Spanish, and now I'm learning German, and I'm like forgetting words in the languages. So there's quite a lot of times where I really don't remember how to say it in English, in Russian, or in Spanish, but I do remember the German word for it now, and vice versa with like the other languages. So at times it might take my brain a little bit to kind of like click around for it. Okay, so that was the last part for it. And then the next section is on page 27 in regards to defining the panentheism. Overall, in the introduction and that kind of thing, I like how she came about it in a very no-nonsense type of way, and how she made her opinion very clear and kind of like her perspective very clear and open to begin with. So I know it might off-put some people in regards to like reading this or continuing to read it. Some people might really agree with her and be like, yes, absolutely, completely on her side, and some people could be a little bit like in the middle. Right now, I'm a little bit kind of in the middle. I'm just very interested to see what more she has to say about her perspective on her practice. And I just really love that she put in a lot of work into kind of researching her own path and finding her own way and seeing what resonates with her, and then going through all that trouble to write a whole big book so that she can share it with others. Now, this is like literally a textbook for witchcraft. Yeah, so I think that pretty much covers what I wanted to talk about in this book. I haven't really seen any new live chats or that kind of thing being mentioned here. I do have the live chat replay, but I've noticed that YouTube only puts out that live chat after 24 hours. So it like takes 24 hours for it to like process this live video. It gets posted right away, but you can't see what other people have wrote until it like finishes its process thing. Hope that makes sense. Yeah, but it is going to be available as soon as I click off for you to rewatch it whenever you get a chance. If you did come join me during live, hi, I'm glad you were here. It was nice to kind of chat with you and that kind of thing. For our next meeting, which is next week on Tuesday at the same time, we are going through pages 27 to 52. Yes. So from pages 27 to 52. Little part that we're reading. And again, it's like right around 3-ish pages a day, which I think is okay for the week. I think it's a good enough pace. I don't know. Let me know how it is going for you. I need feedback to make sure that I'm doing this and having everybody, I see, be comfortable kind of with the pace thing. And if I'm not getting feedback on it, I'm just plowing through with what works for me. I don't know. Let's see how it goes. Yeah, so that is pretty much it for this little chat. I will again kind of do a little recap and a blog post on my website about this, put in like the quotes and references and that kind of thing. Maybe I'll go through the trouble of collecting the list of the books she's mentioned. I'm not sure if it'll be in this post or in the next post or in some post. I'm not entirely sure, because I want to do that for myself and kind of try to go through those books, and maybe that would like deepen my understanding of what she's trying to say, that kind of thing. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing your comments, your reactions, your thoughts on it, see what you think of the book so far, that kind of thing. So let me know down in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, the whole shebang. We have tons of magical fun here. And I will see you on the next video. Bye. Now, how do I close out of this? Okay. Bye.